Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. What does it mean to be a man alone in the world? Not just physically alone, but existentially alone. A man without a girlfriend, without a partner, without that vital force of feminine chaos to temper his masculine order. What does that do to a man? What does that say about who he is and where he's going? Now, I want you to think about this carefully, because in our culture today, there's this growing narrative that men should be entirely self-sufficient, that loneliness is just another form of independence, that living without a partner is a form of strength. And while there is some truth to the idea that a man must first stand on his own 2 feet, we cannot ignore the deep biological and psychological. We thrive in relationships. We find meaning through connection. And when a man isolates himself, when he lives without that deep, meaningful companionship, he risks something profound. Many men today find themselves alone, either by choice or by circumstance. Society often presents solitude as a form of independence, suggesting that a man who stands alone is strong, self-sufficient, and free from the burdens of relationships. While there is some truth in this idea, because every man must learn to be self-reliant, it also carries a hidden danger. The line between solitude and stagnation is thin, and a man who isolates himself for too long risks falling into a state of comfort that hinders his growth. Human beings are social creatures. From an evolutionary perspective, survival depended on our ability. A man who removes himself from this fundamental aspect of human existence is not merely independent. He is cutting himself off from one of the key sources of meaning and challenge in life. This does not mean that every man must be in a relationship at all times, but it does mean that he must be aware of what prolonged isolation does to his mind and soul. A man who lives alone without a partner often falls into patterns that are convenient but unchallenging. He eats when he wants, sleeps when he wants, and structures his life around immediate comfort rather than long-term purpose. Without external accountability, his discipline weakens. He may convince himself that he is free, but in reality, he is slipping into a lifestyle of ease that demands little from him. Relationships, especially romantic ones, force a man to grow because they introduce challenges. They require patience, sacrifice, negotiation, and responsibility. They hold up a mirror, reflecting both his strengths and his weaknesses. The absence of these challenges can make a man believe he is fine as he is. He might tell himself that he doesn't need anyone, that he is strong enough to be alone. But in many cases, this is just an illusion. Strength is not found in isolation. It is tested and refined through interaction with the world. A man who never faces the discomfort of relationships never truly measures himself against the realities of life. Therefore, a man must be honest with himself. Is his solitude a period of necessary self-improvement, or is it an escape from the demands of growth? If it is the latter, then he is not independent. He is avoiding the very struggles that would make him stronger. Human beings are wired for connection. From the earliest days of civilization, survival depended on forming bonds, whether in families, tribes, or communities. A man without meaningful relationships, especially a romantic one, risks drifting through life without the deep sense of purpose that comes from genuine human connection. While friendships, work, and personal achievements contribute to a fulfilling life, romantic relationships introduce a unique dynamic that forces a man to grow in ways he cannot achieve alone. Without a partner, a man may tell himself he is strong and independent, but he often lacks the crucial element of accountability that relationships naturally provide. When no one depends on him, it becomes easier to justify laziness, avoid challenges, and settle into comfort. The presence of a woman in a man's life is not just about companionship. It is about the constant push and pull that forces him to become better. A good partner will challenge his weaknesses, highlight his blind spots, and demand that he step up to responsibilities he might otherwise avoid. A relationship is not merely about attraction or emotional support. It is about integration with another person who brings a different perspective, a different energy, and a different set of values. Women, in particular, introduce a form of chaos into a man's structured world. They think differently, feel differently, and react differently. This dynamic is not a flaw. It is an essential component of human growth. When a man learns to navigate this, he becomes more balanced, more adaptable, and ultimately more complete. On the other hand, a man who remains alone for too long may develop habits that are self-serving and narrow. He answers only to himself, which can lead to a kind of existential drift. He may become highly efficient in his personal routines, but efficiency is not the same as meaning. Meaning comes from responsibility, from taking on burdens that matter, from being needed by someone else. Without this, his life risks becoming a series of tasks and distractions rather than a journey of growth and fulfillment. This is not to say that a man should seek a relationship simply to avoid loneliness. That is a mistake just as dangerous as isolation itself. But he must recognize that relationships, though challenging, provide a fundamental avenue for self-discovery and improvement. A man grows best when he is tested, and few things test a man more than sharing his life with another person. Comfort is one of the greatest threats to a man's potential. When a man is alone for too long, without the challenges that come from a meaningful relationship, he risks falling into patterns that prioritize ease over growth. There is no one to challenge him, no one to hold him accountable, no one to force him out of his self-imposed routines. At first, this may feel like freedom. He can eat what he wants, sleep when he wants, and structure his life entirely around his own desires. But this so-called freedom often leads to stagnation rather than strength. Growth by its very nature is uncomfortable. It requires friction, resistance, and adaptation. In a relationship, a man is constantly tested, not only by his partner, but by the responsibilities that come with being in a committed bond. He must learn to compromise, to communicate, to navigate conflict, and to rise to the expectations of someone who depends on him. Without these pressures, he risks becoming passive, avoiding difficult situations rather than facing them head-on. He may convince himself that he is content, but more often than not, he is simply avoiding the discomfort that comes with real progress. Comfort dulls ambition. A man who lives alone may start lowering his own standards without even realizing it. Without external expectations, he may stop pushing himself in his career, his fitness, or his personal development. He may avoid risks, preferring the predictable and the familiar. Over time, this leads to a sense of aimlessness. He is alive, but he is not truly living. He fills his time with entertainment, distractions, and short-term pleasures, rather than engaging in the kind of struggles that forge character and resilience. The greatest danger of prolonged comfort is that it creates the illusion of fulfillment. A man who has structured his life to avoid challenges may not feel miserable, but he also does not feel deeply satisfied. He exists in a state of quiet mediocrity, where nothing is terribly wrong, yet nothing is deeply meaningful either. True fulfillment comes not from comfort, but from overcoming difficulty, from facing the challenges that force a man to evolve into something greater. A relationship, with all its complexities and struggles, provides one of the most effective ways to keep a man sharp, engaged, and continuously striving toward a higher version of himself. A man should not seek a relationship simply to fill a void within himself. Too often, people enter relationships out of loneliness, insecurity, or a need for validation, rather than as a conscious decision to share their life with someone in a meaningful way. When a man has not built himself into someone strong, disciplined, and capable, he risks using a relationship as a crutch rather than a foundation for genuine connection. He seeks comfort rather than growth, which ultimately weakens both himself and the relationship. A man who has not done the necessary work on himself, who lacks direction, discipline, or emotional stability, will not magically become better just because he is in a relationship. He may feel temporary excitement, but any unresolved weaknesses will inevitably surface. Instead of being a source of strength, he may become needy, overly dependent, or avoidant of responsibility. A man who is uncertain of his own value will often tolerate relationships that do not serve him, or worse, become resentful when his partner does not fulfill the unrealistic expectations he places on her. Building oneself first means developing the qualities that make a man not just desirable, but also reliable and capable. This includes having a strong sense of purpose, maintaining physical and mental discipline, and cultivating emotional resilience. A man who has taken the time to work on himself does not enter a relationship looking for someone to save him. He enters as an equal, ready to contribute rather than just receive. If he understands that love is not about escape, but about responsibility. When a man is confident in who he is, he does not rush into relationships for the wrong reasons. He does not settle out of fear of being alone. He does not cling to unhealthy dynamics because he believes he has no other options. Instead, he carefully chooses a partner who aligns with his values and vision for life. He seeks someone who challenges him to be better, not someone who enables his complacency. Self-improvement is not about perfection, but about becoming the kind of person who can handle the complexities of a relationship with maturity and wisdom. When a man invests in himself first, he is not only more attractive to a potential partner, but he is also capable of building something real and lasting. A relationship built on strength rather than desperation has the best chance of flourishing because it is founded on genuine compatibility rather than unfulfilled personal needs. A man should not enter a relationship out of desperation or a fear of being alone. When he does, he is not choosing a partner from a position of strength, but from a place of need, which sets the foundation for an unstable and unfulfilling dynamic. A man who believes that a relationship will complete him or fix what is broken inside him places an unfair burden on his partner. No relationship can substitute for the deep personal work that every man must do on his own. When a man lacks self-assurance and direction, he may settle for a relationship that is not truly right for him. He might tolerate mistreatment, overlook fundamental incompatibilities, or sacrifice his own values just to avoid loneliness. This kind of attachment is not based on mutual growth or respect. It is driven by insecurity. Over time, this leads to resentment, frustration, and emotional instability. A strong relationship cannot be built on the foundation of one person's unresolved fears. A man who has taken the time to develop himself approaches relationships differently. He does not see them as a means of escape, but as a meaningful addition to an already fulfilling life. He does not seek a partner to fix his problems, but rather to share his journey. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of accepting any relationship that comes his way, he chooses carefully, ensuring that his partner aligns with his goals, values, and aspirations. He is not afraid to walk away from situations that do not serve his long-term well-being because he knows his worth is not tied to whether or not he is in a relationship. A relationship should be something that challenges a man to be better, not something that drains him or holds him back. When he enters from a position of strength, he brings value to the relationship rather than just taking from it. He offers stability, commitment, and purpose instead of emotional dependence or neediness. This creates a partnership that is not only more fulfilling, but also more resilient in the face of difficulties. By focusing on personal growth before seeking a relationship, a man ensures that he is entering into something real rather than something built on fear or insecurity. The healthiest relationships come from two people who are whole on their own, but stronger together. A man who understands this does not just find love. He builds something truly meaningful. A man who lives alone must ask himself an important question. Is his solitude a period of growth, or is it an excuse for mediocrity? Too many men fall into the trap of using isolation as a way to evolve the challenges that force them to evolve. They convince themselves that they are fine as they are, that they don't need anyone, and that their current habits are good enough. But true strength comes from facing challenges head-on, not from avoiding them. A man must recognize that life is not about comfort. It is about responsibility, progress, and contribution. When a man chooses to remain in a state of inertia, he is not just wasting time. He is allowing his potential to slip away. Without a clear sense of purpose, without something to strive toward, he risks becoming passive. He may fall into routines that keep him entertained but do not make him better. He might spend hours on distractions, telling himself that he is content when, in reality, he is just avoiding the discomfort of growth. But comfort is deceptive. It does not provide meaning. It only dulls the awareness that something greater is possible. A man must take responsibility for his own development. He must actively seek challenges that test his discipline, his resilience, and his ability to contribute something valuable to the world. This means setting goals that demand real effort, whether in his career, his physical fitness, or his intellectual pursuits. It means developing skills that make him not just self-sufficient, but truly capable. Someone who can provide, protect, and lead. Growth is not automatic. It is a choice. And every day that a man remains stagnant is a day he has chosen not to step into his full potential. Relationships are one of the most powerful ways a man can refine himself, but they are not the only way. The key is to engage with the world in meaningful ways, to take on responsibilities that stretch his abilities, and to hold himself to a higher standard. A man who does this is never truly alone because he is engaged in a mission greater than himself. He is not waiting for someone else to give his life meaning. He is creating it through his actions. And when he does eventually find a partner, he does not enter the relationship out of need, but out of strength, bringing his best self to something that truly matters.